Julie Martinez stood in front of the large window on the ship's bridge, watching the stars slowly move past. She was nervous, and her hands were shaking a little. Today was the biggest day in human history. After years of talking through space, radio, they were finally going to meet aliens face to face. Captain Kevin Blake walked up beside her. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. "How are you feeling, Ambassador?" he asked. Julie turned to look at him. "Scared," she said honestly. "What if we mess this up? What if they don't like us?" Kevin smiled. "They agreed to meet us, that's a good start." Down in the cargo bay, Dr. Lisa Thompson was taking care of their special gift. She knelt down next to a large cage where two golden retriever puppies were playing. One was male and one was female. The male had bright golden fur and was named Max. The female had lighter fur and was named Luna. "Are you two ready to make history?" Lisa asked the puppies. Max wagged his tail and licked her hand through the cage bars. Luna rolled over and showed her belly for pets. Lisa had been taking care of animals her whole life. She knew everything about dogs, cats, birds, and many other Earth creatures. When the Earth Council asked her to pick animals to give as gifts to the aliens, she thought long and hard about it. "Dogs are perfect," she had told them. "They are friendly, loyal, and loving. They show the best parts of humanity." The ship called UES Harmony was not very big, but it was built for this special mission. It had been flying through space for 3 weeks to reach the meeting place. The crew of 20 humans had practiced what to say and do many times. Dr. Marcus Webb, the head of relations between different species, came into the cargo bay. He was a short man with thick glasses who always worried about everything. "Are the animals healthy?" he asked Lisa. "They are perfect," Lisa replied. "Max and Luna are both 6 months old. They have had all their shots and checkups. They are friendly and well-trained." Marcus looked worried. "I still think this might be a bad idea. We don't know anything about these Zephyrian aliens. What if they eat meat? What if they think the puppies are food?" Lisa shook her head. "The Zephyrians are smart and civilized. They have art, music, and poetry. They won't hurt Max and Luna." Meanwhile, on the bridge, Julie was reading her notes one more time. The Zephyrians were a species that looked like large lizards. They walked on 2 legs and had big brains. Their society was very organized with strict rules about who was in charge. The Zephyrians lived on a hot, dry planet called Zephyr Prime. They were proud and serious people who did not show emotions very often. Their leader was called High Chancellor Vexitar. He was supposed to be very smart and very strict. "Ambassador," called out the ship's communications officer, Dan Cooper. "We are getting a signal from the Zephyrian ship." Julie walked over to the big screen. Slowly, an image of the Zephyrian High Chancellor appeared. He was about 7 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes. He wore a long red robe with gold decorations. "Greetings, humans," Vexitar said in a deep voice. His English was very good, but he spoke slowly. "I am High Chancellor Vexitar of the Zephyrian Council. Welcome to our space." Julie took a deep breath. "Greetings, High Chancellor. I am Ambassador Julie Martinez of Earth. We are honored to meet you and your people." "The honor is mutual," Vexitar replied. "We are curious about your species. You are the first new intelligent life we have found in many years." The 2 ships met in space near a small moon. The Zephyrian ship was much bigger than the human ship. It looked like a huge triangle made of dark metal. Small shuttles flew between the 2 ships. Julie, Kevin, Lisa, and Marcus took a shuttle to the Zephyrian ship. Lisa carried a special travel cage with Max and Luna inside. The puppies were excited and kept looking around at all the new things. Inside the Zephyrian ship, everything was very clean and organized. The walls were white and the floors were made of smooth stone. Zephyrian workers moved around quickly, doing their jobs without talking much. High Chancellor Vexitar met them in a large room with a long table. 6 other Zephyrians were with him. They all wore different colored robes to show their rank. "Please sit," Vexitar said, pointing to chairs that had been made special for humans. Julie sat down and placed the cage next to her chair. Max and Luna, were being very quiet and good. "Hi, Chancellor," Julie began. "On Earth, when we meet new friends, we give gifts to show respect and friendship." Vextar nodded. "This is a good custom. We also exchange gifts." Julie smiled and carefully opened the cage. Max and Luna walked out slowly, looking around with big, curious eyes. The Zephyrians all stared at the puppies. "These are Max and Luna," Julie said. "They are young dogs from Earth. Dogs are very special to humans. They are loyal, loving, and become part of our families. We would like to give them to you as a symbol of friendship between our peoples." The Zephyrians looked confused. One of them, wearing a blue robe, leaned forward. "These creatures are small. Are they for eating?" "Oh no," Lisa said quickly. "Dogs are companions. They live with us and become our friends. They are very smart and can learn tricks. They love to play and give affection." Max, being a friendly puppy, walked over to High Chancellor Vextar. The big alien looked down at the small golden dog. Max wagged his tail and made a small, happy sound. "It appears to be trying to communicate," observed a Zephyrian in a green robe. "He wants to be petted," Lisa explained. "Dogs like to be touched gently. It makes them happy." Vextar looked uncertain. Slowly, he reached down with one large, scaled hand and touched Max's head. Max's tail wagged faster and he pushed his head against the alien's hand. Something strange happened to Vextar's face. His yellow eyes got wider and his mouth opened a little. "It is warm," he said in a surprised voice. "And soft." Luna walked over to another Zephyrian. This one was smaller and wore a purple robe. When Luna sat down and looked up at him with big brown eyes, the alien made a sound that might have been a gasp. "The small one appears to be looking at me with great trust," the purple-robed alien said. "That's because she likes you," Julie explained. "Dogs can sense when someone is good. They want to be friends with you." For the next hour, the humans explained how to take care of dogs. They showed the Zephyrians the special food, toys, and bed that came with Max and Luna. Lisa demonstrated how to pet them and play with them. The Zephyrians watched everything very carefully. They asked many questions about dog behavior, health, and needs. They seemed especially interested when Max rolled over to show his belly. "This behavior indicates complete trust," Vextar observed. "The creature is showing its most vulnerable area." "Exactly," Lisa said. "Dogs only do that when they feel completely safe and loved." When it was time to leave, the humans said goodbye to Max and Luna. Both puppies seemed happy to stay with their new alien friends. "We will take good care of them," Vextar promised. This gift shows the generous nature of humanity. Julie felt good about the meeting as they flew back to their ship. The Zephyrians had been polite and seemed to appreciate the gift. "I think that went very well," she told the others. Marcus nodded but still looked worried. "I hope we made the right choice." None of them knew that in just a few days, everything would change. The gift that was meant to show friendship would become something much more powerful and dangerous than anyone could have imagined. 3 weeks after the meeting with the Zephyrians, Dr. Marcus Webb was sitting in his office on Earth when his communication device started making urgent beeping sounds. He put down his coffee and pressed the answer button. The face of High Chancellor Vextar appeared on the screen, but something was very wrong. The proud alien leader looked tired and confused. His usually perfect robe was wrinkled and his scales looked dull. "Dr. Webb," Vextar said in a shaky voice, "we need to talk immediately. Something terrible has happened." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What's wrong, High Chancellor? Are Max and Luna okay?" "The creatures are fine," Vextar replied. "Too fine. They are the problem." "I don't understand," Marcus said. Vexatar looked around nervously. "Can we speak privately? This is very embarrassing for my people." Marcus quickly called Ambassador Julie Martinez and Dr. Lisa Thompson to his office. When they were all gathered around the communication screen, Vextar began to explain. "The small creatures you gave us have destroyed our civilization," he said. What do you mean destroyed? Julie asked, looking shocked. Vextar took a deep breath. 3 days after you left, something strange started happening. My council members stopped coming to important meetings. When I looked for them, I found them all sitting on the floor with Max and Luna. That doesn't sound so bad, Lisa said. It gets worse, Vextar continued. My military commanders abandoned their posts. They said the creatures needed someone to watch them at all times. Our workers stopped doing their jobs. Our students stopped going to school. Everyone just wants to be near the dogs. Marcus leaned forward. But surely you can make rules about when people can visit them. Vextar made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it sounded sad. I tried. I made a law that said people could only spend 1 hour per day with Max and Luna. Do you know what happened? What? Julie asked. My own guards refused to enforce the law. They said it was cruel to limit time with such innocent creatures. Then my judges said the law was unfair. Even I cannot stay away from them. Lisa looked worried now. How much time are people spending with the dogs? Yesterday I missed the most important meeting of the year because Luna looked sad. I spent 4 hours trying to make her happy by teaching her a new game. My assistant found me on the floor, and Luna was sleeping on my back. The 3 humans looked at each other with growing alarm. Hi, Chancellor, Marcus said carefully. Are you asking us to take Max and Luna back? Vextar was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. That is the worst part. We cannot bear the thought of them leaving. When I suggested it to my council, they became very upset. Some of them started crying. I have never seen a Zephyrian cry before. After the call ended, Marcus immediately contacted the Earth Council. Within hours, there was an emergency meeting. President Helen Carter, the leader of Earth, listened to the report with a serious expression. This is very strange, she said. But maybe it's not so bad. Maybe the aliens just need time to adjust. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, Earth's top psychologist, disagreed. This sounds like addictive behavior. The aliens might be having a psychological reaction we didn't expect. Before anyone could decide what to do, more calls started coming in. Word about the Earth animals had spread through the galaxy, and other alien species wanted their own pets. The first request came from the crystalline hegemony. They were a species made of living crystal who were famous for being very logical and smart. Their leader, Prime Crystal Zarathek, contacted Earth with a formal request. We have heard about your biological companions, Zarathek said. Her voice sounded like musical chimes. We would like to study one of these creatures to understand their effect on organic minds. Against Dr. Rodriguez's advice, the Earth Council agreed to send one cat to the crystalline hegemony. The cat was an orange tabby named Whiskers. He was 2 years old and very friendly. Dr. Lisa Thompson personally delivered Whiskers to the crystal aliens. Their home world was beautiful, covered in huge crystal formations that sparkled in the light of their sun. The crystalline beings lived in perfect geometric cities and spent their time doing complex mathematics and science. This creature will be an interesting subject for study, Zarathek said, as she looked at Whiskers in his carrier. He's not just a subject, Lisa explained. He's a living being who needs love and care. Cats like to be petted and played with. The crystal aliens nodded, but Lisa could tell they didn't really understand. 2 days later, Zarathek called Earth. In panic. The creature has broken our society, she said, her musical voice now harsh and discordant. What happened? Dr. Webb asked. It keeps moving objects from high places to low places for no logical reason, Zarathek explained. Our greatest scientists have spent 37 hours trying to understand why. They have stopped all other research. That's just what cats do, Lisa said. They like to knock things over. It's normal behavior. Normal? Zarathek sounded confused. But there is no logical purpose. Our scientists are obsessed with understanding the pattern. Some think it is a form of advanced physics we have not discovered yet. The situation got worse over the following days. The crystal aliens' entire research program stopped as their best minds focused on studying Whiskers. They created complex, Theories about why he pushed objects off tables, why he purred, and why he sometimes ran around the room for no apparent reason. The small creature has made 17 of our top scientists completely unable to think about anything else, Zarathek reported. They sit and watch it for hours. When it sleeps, they discuss its dreams. But the worst news came from the Talon Empire. They were a species of bird-like warriors who prided themselves on being fierce and strong. Their culture was built around fighting and conquest. General Kree Tak, the leader of their military, had requested hunting animals from Earth. He wanted creatures that would help train his soldiers to be better fighters. Dr. Thompson had sent them 2 rabbits named Cotton and Snowball. She thought rabbits would be good because they were quick and would make the alien soldiers work to catch them. She was very wrong. General Kree Tak's first call came just 5 days after receiving the rabbits. "Dr. Thompson," he said, his voice much softer than usual. "We have a situation." "Are the rabbits okay?" she asked. "The rabbits are perfect," Kree Tak replied. "Too perfect. My soldiers refuse to hunt them." "Why?" "Have you seen how they hop?" Kree Tak asked. "How their noses twitch? How they clean their faces with their tiny paws?" Lisa was starting to understand. "Oh no. My fiercest warriors have become soft," Kree Tak continued. "They spend their time building comfortable homes for Cotton and Snowball. They argue about who gets to feed them fresh vegetables. Yesterday, 3 of my best generals had a serious discussion about whether the rabbits might be cold at night. The reports kept coming in, each one worse than the last. The Talon Empire's military training had completely stopped. Soldiers abandoned combat exercises to make sure the rabbits had enough hay to eat. Some warriors started carrying pictures of Cotton and Snowball into battle. "My army is no longer an army," General Kree Tak said sadly. "They are babysitters for small, fluffy creatures." Dr. Amy Rodriguez was now working full-time trying to understand what was happening. She interviewed alien psychologists and studied brain scans from affected species. "It's like the animals are triggering some kind of parental instinct," she told Dr. Webb. "But it's much stronger than anything we see in humans." "Why doesn't it affect us the same way?" Webb asked. "I think it's because we evolved with these animals," Rodriguez explained. "We've had thousands of years to build up resistance. These alien species are experiencing the full effect with no natural defenses. Meanwhile, more species kept requesting animals. The Void Seekers, who were known for being emotionally cold and logical, asked for a small creature to study biological emotion. The Hive Collective wanted to understand individual attachment to non-productive organisms. Each time, despite growing concerns, the Earth Council approved the requests. The alien species seemed so confident they could handle Earth animals, and the humans didn't want to seem unfriendly. Dr. Lisa Thompson found herself becoming the busiest person on Earth. She was responsible for selecting and preparing animals for dozens of different alien species. Her assistant, Mike Johnson, helped her keep track of all the requests. "We have 17 more requests this week," Mike told her as he looked at his tablet. "The Aquatic Federation wants fish, the Desert Wanderers want a lizard, and the Tree Singers want a bird." Lisa felt overwhelmed. "I'm starting to think we should slow down." "The government says we can't," Mike replied. "They're worried that refusing will hurt our diplomatic relationships." But late at night, Lisa would lie awake wondering if they were making a terrible mistake. Every day brought new reports of alien civilizations being changed by Earth animals. Some changes seemed positive, but others were clearly causing problems. She thought about Max and Luna with the Zephyrians, Whiskers with the Crystal Aliens, and Cotton and Snowball with the Warrior Birds. All of these animals were healthy and happy, but their presence was changing entire alien societies in ways no one had predicted. The worst part was that none of the alien species wanted to give the animals back, even when it was clear the creatures were causing problems. Dr. Dan Cooper had never expected to become the most important scientist in the galaxy. He was a quiet man who liked studying alien brains and behavior. He worked at the Galactic Research Station, a place where scientists from different species worked together to solve problems. When reports about the Earth animal crisis started coming in, Dan was assigned to lead an investigation. His partner was Kilthara, a member of the Archivists Guild. The Archivists were known for being neutral and honest. They never took sides in galactic politics. Kilthara looked like a tall, thin person made of blue energy. She could change her shape a little, but she usually kept the form of a humanoid because it made other species feel comfortable. This situation is very strange, Kilthara said as they reviewed the reports in their laboratory. 17 different species are all showing the same reaction to Earth animals. That cannot be a coincidence. Dan nodded as he looked at brain scans from affected aliens. Look at these patterns. The Zephyrians, the Crystal Beings, the Talon Warriors, they all show the same changes in their brain activity when they're near Earth animals. On the screen, colorful images showed alien brains lighting up in unusual ways. Certain areas were much brighter than normal, while others were almost dark. The emotional centers are overloaded, Dan observed, but the logical thinking areas are barely working. They decided to visit some of the affected planets to see the situation for themselves. Their first stop was Zephyr Prime, home of the Zephyrians. When their ship landed, Dan and Kilthara were surprised by what they saw. The usually organized Zephyrian cities looked different. Instead of straight lines and rigid order, there were curved paths and comfortable gathering spaces. Everywhere they looked, they saw groups of Zephyrians sitting together in circles. Hi, Chancellor Vextar met them at the spaceport. He looked much more relaxed than before, but also somehow less focused. Welcome to our world, Vextar said with a smile. Dan had never seen a Zephyrian smile before. Max and Luna are very excited to meet you. We're here to study the situation, Dan explained. We need to understand what's happening to your people. Of course, Vextar said. But first, you must meet Max and Luna. It would be rude not to. Before Dan could object, Vextar led them to a large building that used to be the government center. Inside, they found dozens of Zephyrians sitting on comfortable cushions around 2 golden retriever dogs. The dogs were bigger now, almost full-grown, and they seemed very happy. When Max saw the visitors, he ran over with his tail wagging. Dan felt something strange happen in his chest. A warm, happy feeling. But it passed quickly. Interesting, Kilthara whispered. I felt something too, but it was brief. Luna came over and sat down next to Kilthara. The blue energy being reached down and carefully petted the dog's head. The creature is generating some kind of emotional field, she observed. Max, Luna, called one of the Zephyrians. Come here, my precious ones. The dogs ran over to the alien, who immediately started petting them and making baby talk sounds. Other Zephyrians gathered around, all wanting to touch the dogs. Dan pulled out his brain scanner and pointed it at the group. The readings were amazing. Every Zephyrian near the dogs showed the same pattern. Emotional areas burning bright, logical areas almost shut down. This is incredible, he whispered to Kilthara. The animals are affecting their brain chemistry directly. Over the next few days, Dan and Kilthara interviewed hundreds of Zephyrians. The stories were all similar. Before the dogs arrived, Zephyrians had been focused on duty, hierarchy, and order. Now they cared more about cooperation, happiness, and taking care of Max and Luna. We are better now, one former military officer told them. His name was Zektar, and he used to be very strict and serious. Before, we only cared about following orders. Now we understand what is truly important. What is truly important? Kilthara asked. Zektar smiled and pointed to Max, who was sleeping in a sunny spot. Making sure our friends are happy and safe, taking care of each other, working together, instead of fighting. Their next stop was the Crystal Homeworld. The changes there were even more dramatic. The once perfect geometric cities now had curved sections and comfortable areas where beings could gather. Crystal gardens had been planted with soft organic plants. Prime Crystal Zarathek met them at her laboratory, where Whiskers the cat was sitting on a specially made cushion. The orange tabby was wearing a small crown made of crystal. Welcome, researchers, Zarathek said. Her musical voice was different now, warmer and less precise. We have learned so much from our study of this creature. What have you learned? Dan asked. That logic is not everything, Zaratek replied. Whiskers has taught us about the importance of play, comfort, and irrational affection. Dan watched as several crystal beings sat around Whiskers, simply observing him sleep. Their normally bright, sharp light was softer now, more gentle. Our productivity has decreased by 73%, Zaratek admitted, but our happiness levels have increased by over 200%. We are beginning to think that happiness might be more important than productivity. On the Talon Empire's military world, the changes were the most surprising. The fierce warrior culture had been completely transformed. Former soldiers were now gardeners, cooks, and caretakers for Cotton and Snowball, the two rabbits. General Kretak, who once commanded vast armies, now spent his days making sure the rabbits had the best possible food and shelter. He had built them an elaborate palace with multiple rooms and gardens. I used to think strength was about fighting and conquering, Kretak told them as he gently brushed Cotton's fur. Now I understand that true strength is about protecting and nurturing those who need care. As Dan collected more data, he began to see a pattern. Dr. Claire Matthews, a brain specialist from Earth, joined their investigation team. She was a small woman with red hair who had studied animal-human relationships her whole career. I think I know what's happening, Claire said after reviewing all their data. Humans evolved with these animals for thousands of years. We developed natural defenses against their emotional effects. What kind of defenses? Kilthara asked. Our brains learned to balance the emotional response with logical thinking, Claire explained. When we see a cute puppy, we feel happy and want to care for it, but we can still function normally. We can go to work, make decisions, and live our lives. Dan nodded. But these alien species have no such defenses. Exactly, Claire said. They're experiencing the full emotional impact with no ability to resist or control it. It's like they're being hit by a tidal wave of nurturing instinct. To test this theory, they conducted experiments with volunteers from different species. They showed pictures and videos of Earth animals to various aliens while monitoring their brain activity. Tiati. Results were shocking. Every alien species showed immediate and intense reactions to images of Earth animals. Their emotional centers activated powerfully, while their logical thinking decreased dramatically. Even pictures have this effect, Dan observed. The real animals must be incredibly overwhelming. Captain Ryan Torres, who commanded the research ship UES Discovery, helped them gather more evidence. His crew documented how even trained alien scientists became unable to work properly when Earth animals were present. I watched a team of crystalline mathematicians try to solve a simple equation while a hamster was in the room, Ryan reported. They kept getting distracted by how the hamster stuffed food in its cheeks. They couldn't focus on numbers at all. The most disturbing discovery came when they studied the brain scans more carefully. Dr. Claire Matthews made the breakthrough that changed everything. Look at this, she said, pointing to a brain scan from a Zephyrian who had spent time with Max and Luna. The neural pathways related to independence and self-interest are being rewritten. What does that mean? Dan asked. It means the aliens aren't just becoming fond of the animals, Claire explained. Their brains are being physically changed. They're becoming psychologically dependent on the animals for emotional stability. This was much worse than anyone had imagined. The Earth animals weren't just causing temporary behavioral changes. They were permanently altering alien brain structure. Kilthara processed this information with her usual calm efficiency. So the affected species cannot return to their previous state even if the animals are removed? That's what it looks like, Claire said sadly. The changes appear to be permanent. Dan felt sick. We've accidentally created the most powerful mind control weapon in galactic history. And every affected species is asking for more animals, Ryan added grimly. The team realized they had uncovered something that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Humans had evolved a unique resistance to their own animals' psychological effects. Every other known species was completely vulnerable. We need to report this to Earth immediately, Dan said. And we need to warn the Galactic Council. But as they prepared their report, they received urgent messages from across the galaxy. More and more species were requesting Earth animals. The demand was growing exponentially, and Earth was struggling to keep up with all the requests. "It's like an epidemic," Kilthera observed. "Species hear about the animals from their neighbors and immediately want them too." The emergency call came at 3 in the morning, Earth time. Admiral Susan Price was sound asleep when her communication device started flashing red and making loud warning sounds. She grabbed the device with shaking hands, knowing that red alerts meant something very bad had happened. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Fleet Commander Thanevor of the Void Seekers. The Void Seekers were known throughout the galaxy for being the most emotionally controlled species ever discovered. They never showed feelings and always made decisions based on pure logic. But Fleet Commander Thanevor looked completely different from any Void Seeker anyone had ever seen. His usually calm gray face was flushed with color, and his dark eyes were wide and panicked. "Admiral Price," he said in a voice that shook with emotion, "we need your help immediately. Our entire civilization is collapsing." Susan sat up straight in her bed. "What happened, Commander?" "The creature," Thanevor said. "The small Earth creature called Peanut. We cannot function anymore." Susan felt her heart sink. 3 weeks ago, the Void Seekers had requested a single small animal for scientific study. Dr. Lisa Thompson had sent them a hamster named Peanut, thinking that such a tiny, simple creature would be safe. "Tell me exactly what's happening," Susan said as she quickly got dressed. Thanevor took a deep breath. "We received the creature as planned. Our scientists began studying its behavior patterns. Everything seemed normal for the first day. Then what happened? On the second day, one of our researchers, Dr. Zenkar, was observed sitting motionless for 6 hours, simply watching the creature sleep. When questioned, he said he was afraid to move because he might wake it up." Susan closed her eyes. She had a feeling this story was going to get much worse. By the third day, our entire research team had abandoned their other projects. They were taking turns watching the creature eat, sleep, and run on its exercise wheel. They created detailed schedules to make sure someone was always observing it. "Where is your fleet now?" Susan asked. Thanevor looked embarrassed. "We changed course 3 days ago. All 47 ships are returning to our homeworld because the creature seemed lonely. Our Council of Elders voted unanimously that Peanut needed to be with more of his own kind." Susan could hardly believe what she was hearing. The Void Seekers had been on a 1,000-year exploration mission to map distant galaxies. They were the most dedicated and focused species in known space, and they had abandoned everything for a hamster. "Commander, you need to understand that hamsters don't actually get lonely the way you think they do," Susan tried to explain. "No," Thanevor said firmly. "You are wrong. I have spent 18 hours watching Peanut, and I know when he is sad. Yesterday he looked at me with his tiny black eyes, and I could see that he was asking why he had no friends." Susan realized there was no point in arguing. The Void Seekers were already too far gone. Within hours of that call, Susan's communication device was ringing constantly. Species after species was calling with similar stories. The crisis was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Dr. Marcus Webb called an emergency meeting of the Earth Council. President Helen Carter looked tired and worried as she listened to the reports coming in from across the galaxy. "How many species are affected now?" she asked. Dr. Webb looked at his tablet. 43 confirmed cases, but the number is growing every day. Some species are requesting multiple animals. The Aquatic Federation wants a whole school of fish. The Desert Wanderers are asking for 12 different types of lizards. "And we're still sending animals?" President Carter asked. "The diplomatic pressure is enormous," replied Foreign Minister Robert Clark. "If we refuse, these species threaten to cut off all trade and communication with us. Some are even talking about military action." Dr. Amy Rodriguez, who had been studying the psychological effects, stood up to speak. "Madam President, we need to stop all animal exports immediately. The situation is getting out of control." "But what about the species that already have animals?" asked Dr. Webb. "Should we take them back?" Dr. Rodriguez shook her head. "That might be even worse. Dr. Tony Lewis has been working with some affected aliens, and the withdrawal symptoms are severe." Dr. Tony Lewis was Earth's leading expert on addiction. He had been trying to help aliens who had been separated from their Earth animals for various reasons. His reports were frightening. "I worked with a group of crystal beings whose cat had to be taken to the vet," Dr. Lewis explained to the council. "They showed symptoms similar to severe drug withdrawal: shaking, panic attacks, inability to concentrate. One of them actually tried to break into the veterinary clinic to be near their cat. The situation became even more complicated when the Galactic Assembly announced they were calling an emergency session. The assembly was like a big meeting where representatives from hundreds of species came together to discuss important issues. Admiral Susan Price was chosen to represent Earth at the assembly. She had been in the military for 20 years and had dealt with many difficult diplomatic situations, but nothing had prepared her for this. The assembly meeting was held on Neutral Station, a huge space station that belonged to no single species. As Susan's ship approached the station, she could see hundreds of other ships from across the galaxy. Many of them looked like they had come in a hurry. Inside the assembly hall, the atmosphere was tense and angry. Representatives from dozens of species were talking loudly and gesturing with frustration. Susan could see that many of them looked different from usual, less organized, more emotional. The assembly chairman, a tall being from the ancient elder species, called for order. "We are here to address the crisis created by Earth's biological weapons," he announced. "Biological weapons?" Susan stood up in protest. "They're pets. We had no idea this would happen." "Silence," shouted Representative Klextar from the Talon Empire. "Your pets have destroyed our military readiness. Our warriors spend their days making flower crowns for rabbits instead of training for battle. Our productivity has fallen by 80%, added Representative Zilmark from the Crystal Hegemony. "Our greatest minds can only think about cat behavior patterns." One by one, species representatives stood up to tell their stories. The pattern was always the same. Their societies had been completely changed by Earth animals, and they couldn't function normally anymore. But the strangest part was that despite all their complaints, none of them wanted to give the animals back. "We demand that Earth provide us with more animals," declared Representative Vothran from the Void Seekers. "Peanut is lonely and needs companions." "Wait," Susan said, confused. "You're angry about the animals causing problems, but you want more of them." The assembly hall went quiet. The representatives looked at each other with confusion. "The animals are necessary," Representative Klextar said slowly, as if the words were hard to form, "even though they are problematic." Susan realized she was seeing the psychological dependency in action. The aliens knew the animals were causing problems, but they couldn't bear the thought of being without them. Earth must provide animals to every species that requests them, demanded the elder chairman. "It is unfair that some species have these creatures while others do not." "But we can't produce animals fast enough," Susan protested. "And the effects are clearly harmful to your civilizations." "Harmful?" Representative Zarathek from the Crystal Hegemony sounded shocked. "How can love and happiness be harmful?" The debate went on for hours. Some representatives demanded that Earth stop all animal exports immediately. Others insisted that Earth provide animals to every species in the galaxy. A few suggested that Earth should be punished for creating the crisis in the first place. But underneath all the arguments, Susan could see the real problem. The affected species were no longer thinking clearly. They couldn't make rational decisions about the animals because their brains had been changed by exposure to Earth creatures. The assembly finally voted on a resolution. Earth had 30 days to either provide animals to every species that wanted them, or remove all animals from affected species and pay massive compensation for the damage caused. "This is impossible," Susan told the assembly. "We don't have enough animals for hundreds of species, and removing them would cause psychological trauma." "That is Earth's problem to solve," the elder chairman replied coldly. As Susan flew back to Earth, she felt the weight of the crisis settling on her shoulders. Humanity had accidentally created a situation that threatened the stability of the entire galaxy. Every solution seemed to make the problem worse. On Earth, emergency meetings were happening around the clock. Scientists, diplomats, and military leaders tried to figure out what to do. Some suggested that Earth should refuse the Assembly's demands and prepare for war. Others thought they should try to breed animals as quickly as possible to meet the demand. Dr. Lisa Thompson, who had started the whole crisis by selecting the first animals, was working day and night to care for thousands of animals being prepared for export. She looked exhausted and guilty. "I just wanted to share the joy that animals bring," she told Susan during one of their meetings. "I never imagined it would cause so much trouble." Meanwhile, reports kept coming in from affected worlds. Governments were restructuring themselves around animal care schedules. 5 years had passed since the crisis began, and Ambassador Julie Martinez stood at the window of her new office on Orbital Station Alpha. She was now the director of the Department of Biological Diplomacy, a job that didn't exist before Earth accidentally conquered the galaxy with cute animals. Below her, she could see Earth protected by the most advanced defense system ever built. But these defenses weren't meant to keep invaders out. They were meant to keep desperate aliens from sneaking onto Earth to steal more animals. Her assistant, Mike Johnson, entered the office carrying a tablet full of daily reports. "Good morning, Director. We have the usual requests today." Julie sighed and sat down at her desk. "How many this time?" 47 new requests for animals, 12 requests for animal visitation rights, and 6 proposals for marriage between aliens and their pets," Mike read from his tablet. "Marriage proposals again?" Julie shook her head. "Please send the standard response explaining that Earth animals cannot legally marry anyone." The intercom on her desk buzzed. "Director Martinez, you have a call from the Zephyrian Puppy Parliament." Julie pressed the answer button. High Chancellor Vextar appeared on her screen, but he looked very different from the proud military leader he had been years ago. He was wearing a colorful sweater with pictures of dogs on it, and his scales looked much brighter and healthier. "Greetings, Director Martinez," Vextar said with a warm smile. "I am calling to report on our progress." "How are Max and Luna doing?" Julie asked. The 2 dogs were now middle-aged and had become the most important beings in Zephyrian society. "They are wonderful," Vextar replied. "Max learned a new trick yesterday where he rolls over and plays dead. The entire council spent 3 hours discussing whether this was a sign of his advanced intelligence or just playful behavior." Julie had learned not to argue with the affected aliens about their interpretations of normal animal behavior. "And how is your society functioning?" "Better than ever," Vextar said proudly. "Our new government system is working perfectly. Every major decision is made by the council, while sitting in a circle around Max and Luna. The dogs seem to have a calming effect that helps us make better choices." This was actually true. Despite the strange circumstances, many of the affected species had become more peaceful and cooperative. The Zephyrians had not fought a single war since receiving the dogs. Their crime rates had dropped to almost 0, and their citizens reported being much happier. "We do have one small request," Vextar continued. "Max and Luna are getting older, and we are worried about what will happen when they pass away. Could we perhaps have some younger dogs to learn from them?" Julie had been dreading this conversation. "Chancellor, you know the current restrictions. No new animals can be distributed without approval from the Galactic Quarantine Council." Vextar's expression became sad. "But surely you understand our situation. Our entire civilization now depends on Max and Luna. If something happens to them..." "I understand, Chancellor. I'll bring it up at the next council meeting." After the call ended, Julie walked to the special elevator that took her down to the most secure part of the station. Here, Dr. Kate Anderson ran the Animal Recovery and Management Division. Dr. Anderson had been working for 5 years to help affected alien species maintain some level of normal function while managing their animal dependencies. It was the most difficult job in the galaxy. "How are our patients today?" Julie asked as they walked through the secure corridors. "Mixed results," Kate replied. "The crystal beings are doing better since we established the scheduled Whiskers visitation program. They can focus on research for up to 4 hours at a time now, as long as they know they'll see their cat afterward." They stopped at an observation window where they could see a group of crystal beings working on mathematical equations. Every few minutes, one of them would look toward a door where they knew Whiskers was waiting in the next room. The Talon warriors are adapting well to their new role as animal caretakers, Kate continued. They've actually become incredibly skilled at veterinary medicine. Some of their techniques for rabbit care are better than anything we had on Earth. In another room, they could see former military commanders gently examining rabbits and taking detailed notes about their health and behavior. But the Void Seekers are still struggling, Kate said with concern. They've been away from Peanut for 3 days while we treat his minor illness, and they're showing severe withdrawal symptoms. Through another window, Julie could see several Void Seekers sitting in meditation positions, but they were clearly distressed. Their usual gray skin had turned a worrying pale color, and they were making small whimpering sounds. How long can they be separated from Peanut? Julie asked. No more than a week, Kate replied. After that, they start showing signs of serious psychological breakdown. They continued their tour to the most secure section of the station. Here, Captain Tyler, Johnson commanded the defense systems that protected Earth from desperate alien infiltrators. Any incidents today, Captain? Julie asked. Tyler nodded grimly. We caught 3 aquatic Federation ships trying to sneak past our sensors. They claimed they were just passing through, but we found detailed plans for kidnapping dolphins. Dolphins? Julie was alarmed. We've managed to keep marine mammals secret so far. That's getting harder, Tyler replied. Some of the affected species are starting to research Earth's oceans. They know we have aquatic animals, and they're becoming obsessed with the idea. This was one of Julie's biggest fears. The land animals had already caused enough chaos. If alien species discovered Earth's whales, dolphins, and other marine life, the psychological effects might be even more powerful. We also intercepted communications between several species planning joint raids on Earth, Tyler continued. They're calling it Operation Puppy Liberation. They believe we're being cruel by keeping so many animals to ourselves. Julie felt tired. Every day brought new challenges as the affected alien species became more creative in their attempts to get more Earth animals. Her communication device buzzed with an urgent message. Director, the Galactic Assembly is requesting an emergency session. An hour later, Julie found herself in the assembly hall again, but everything was different now. The grand chamber had been redesigned with comfortable seating areas and soft lighting. Representatives from affected species had insisted that the harsh, formal environment was bad for their emotional well-being. The elder chairman looked older and more tired than before. Even his species, which had remained unaffected so far, was feeling the stress of managing a galaxy full of animal-dependent civilizations. Director Martinez, the chairman began, we have received reports that Earth is developing new animals in secret laboratories. That's not true, Julie replied. We're simply trying to breed enough animals to meet existing commitments. Representative Klextar from the Talon Empire stood up. He was wearing a vest covered in patches showing pictures of rabbits. We demand equal access to all Earth animal species. It is unfair that some creatures are kept hidden from us. You already have rabbits, Julie pointed out. But we have learned that Earth has creatures called guinea pigs and chinchillas, Klexter said with obvious longing. Our military scientists believe these creatures might be even more perfect than rabbits. The debate that followed was typical of assembly meetings in recent years. Representatives made emotional arguments about their need for animals, while completely ignoring the practical problems this caused. The most disturbing development was that unaffected species were starting to demand animals too. They had seen how peaceful and happy the affected species had become, and they wanted the same transformation for themselves. The Mechanical Collective has officially requested cats, announced Representative Byte 7. We believe that learning to care for biological entities will improve our understanding of organic life. The Shadow Wraiths want nocturnal animals, added Representative Darkness Whisper. We feel that creatures active during night hours would suit our culture. Julie realized that the crisis was entering a new phase. It was no longer about managing the affected species. Now, unaffected species were voluntarily seeking out the same dependency. When the session ended, Julie returned to her office feeling overwhelmed. Earth had become the center of galactic civilization, but not in the way anyone had planned. Instead of being respected for their technology or wisdom, humans were valued only for their animals. Dr. Marcus Webb, now an old man, visited her office that evening. "Do you ever wonder if we should have handled this differently?" he asked. Julie looked out at the stars where hundreds of alien civilizations had been transformed by Earth creatures. "Sometimes. But when I see the reports of reduced conflict, increased cooperation, and higher happiness levels across the galaxy, I wonder if maybe we accidentally did something good. Even if it wasn't what we intended? Maybe the galaxy needed this," Julie said thoughtfully. "Maybe everyone was too focused on conflict and competition. The animals forced them to think about care, love, and cooperation instead." Her desk screen lit up with a new message. It was from the newest affected species, the digital minds who had recently received their first pet, a goldfish named Sparky.